Case file 8008, the Mansion Murder. I got a call on a dark and stormy night to investigate the murder of Steve No Last Name. He was an up-and-coming tech entrepreneur who made his own small fortune. He planned on having a dinner party with his friends after a successful business deal. With Trey, his best friend from high school, Brennan, an acquaintance he made last year, Ulisa, his childhood friend, and Nelson, his main friend from university. On the night of the dinner party, Steve No Last Name was found dead from a fall from the third-story balcony. He was later found outside by the butler. It is now my job to question the suspects and get to the bottom of this case. Suspect 1, interview. Trey.
I knew Steve since high school. We were best friends. I could have never killed him. I don't know who'd want to do such a thing. Steve was such a nice guy. All I remember was Steve and I were in the living room because I showed up first. So we sat down, had a few drinks, ate some food. And the next, Brennan came in. And he had to go leave somewhere. I don't remember where he said. But Steve and I kept drinking, and then we had a few too many. So I took Steve up to his bedroom to get some rest because he was having a rough time. And then I left his room after I put him down, and then suddenly the lights went out. And I was heading downstairs, and then when they finally came back on, felt like they were only out for a minute, felt like. And then I decided I should go check back on Steve, see if he was good. And when I was making my way to his room, I saw Nelson come out, and I asked her if everything was okay. She told me everything was fine, so I believed her. And I made my way back down to the living room, and that's where I've been ever since. That's where I spend the rest of the night.
Suspect 2, interview. Brennan.
I haven't known Steve for very long like the others. We met maybe a year ago at one of his conferences and clicked, but murder? I don't have a single bad bone in my body. I would never even hurt a fly. I showed up a few minutes late, but was only the second to arrive. Trey and Steve were chatting in the living room, but there was really nothing out of the ordinary. I guess Steve was acting a bit odd, but he was probably drunk or something. Ulisa showed up right after, and then I had to use the restroom and by the living room. And that's when I'm guessing Nosen arrived. The bathroom was down a long hallway, and when I walked over, I went to open it, and the door would not budge. But after a few pushes, I finally opened it, but only for the lights to start to shut off. But it wasn't just that. It got extremely cold really fast, and it felt like someone was breathing down my neck, or just there watching me. And so I was like, nah, I'm getting out of here right now. And I decided to use the upstairs bathroom. But the upstairs was freezing. It was even colder than downstairs. And Steve's room was the only door closed. Everything else was open, which was kind of odd, but I was just focusing on going to the bathroom. And then when I came back down, the lights turned on, and Trey and Nelson were downstairs, and then Ulisa walked in a little bit later. But that's all I know.
Suspect 3, interview. Ulisa.
Steve was a childhood friend of mine, and I've known him since we were young. I don't know who would ever do such a horrendous thing like that to him. And it's even ridiculous how you could assume I would do such a horrendous thing like killing Steve. I'm literally innocent, I swear. I arrived at Steve's house and made my way to the living room where Steve, Trey, and Brennan were talking and having some drinks. Brennan left to use the restroom, and shortly after, Trey took Steve to his room since he didn't feel so good. I was left alone for a while until Nelson came in. It was just me and her. The power went out, and it was just pitch black in the house. Nelson decided to go look for the power box, while I decided to check up on Brennan, but when I went to go look for Brennan, he wasn't there. Now looking back, it's kind of suspicious how he was nowhere to be found at the time of Steve's murder. But at that instant, I started to freak out because I began to hear whispering when no one was even near me. So I went outside to cool down until the power came back on, which was about 10 minutes. And once the power came back on, I made my way back to the living room where everybody was at, only to find out what had happened to Steve.
Suspect 4, interview. Nelson.
Steve was such a good friend. I can't believe this happened to him. We came to hang out and someone dies. I can't believe this, and I can't believe you think one of us killed him. I swear it wasn't me. I have no reason to kill him. He was my closest friend in uni and the group. I got there a little later than everyone, and we've been in this house so many times, but today it just felt eerie. I was alone with Ulysses in the living room when the light suddenly went out. She was freaking out at this point and decided to go look for the others, while I went to the power box to turn on the lights. It was around Steve's room. I think 6 minutes passed. I wasn't keeping track. I noticed that Steve was in his room and decided to enter. It was really cold and uncomfortable in there, and he was behaving very strangely as well. I asked him what he was doing, and he wasn't responding and just standing there by the window. I think he was sleepwalking. I helped him get back to his bed and then went outside where I bumped into Trey, and then I turned the lights back on. And then I went to the living room. Yes, I saw Steve, but I only helped him get back to his bed, and then I went out. It was a really short period of time. I would never do something like this.
After questioning all the suspects, they all seemed suspicious in their own ways. However, I had to let them go. The autopsy of Steve No Last Name came back stating that he had died before anyone arrived at the mansion, which, based on their testimonials, seemed odd. However, I had to let it go. Cold Case File 8008 ended.